Welcome to the Believe in Texans podcast alongside former Houston Texans wide receiver, six-year NFL veteran Cecil Shorts III. I am Patrick Creighton, host of Area 45 on Sports Radio 610, your flagship home for the Houston Texans. And Cecil, the big news coming down today, Texans linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair suspended 3 games for his hit on Trevor Lawrence. The actual statement from the NFL reads a little longer, though. This appears to not just be for the hit, but for everything that followed. And after the game on Sunday, I had, posted on social media that, to me, the big issue with Azeez here was not that he delivered a late hit. Now, he did. Okay, he was. This is a quarterback who's down. You led with the forearm, put the forearm right on Lawrence's head, drove his head into the turf, ultimately leading to what appeared to be a concussion. Trevor Lawrence going into the fencing position and every sign of a concussion. Those hits happen in the NFL. We'd love for them not to. But the speed at which the game is played, when you're trying to make decisions in less than a split second, these things we see them happen every week in the NFL and college football. They happen every week. The bigger issue to me was not that hit; it was what followed. And I know you and I had talked about this, and I think you and I kind of see the same way. This wasn't about the hit. This was about Azeez trying to pick a fight with damn near every single player of the Jacksonville Jaguars in the aftermath, then being announced as ejected, not leaving the field, pulling off his helmet, trying to start more fights with people, leading to a second scrum in the end zone. Azeez was acting like a madman. And I feel like that is a big part of this 3-game suspension handed down by the NFL. Let me give you the actual statement from NFL Vice President of Football Ops, Jon Runyan, himself a guy who has a, let's say, interesting past when it comes to legal and illegal hits. Here is the statement from Jon Runyan. During your game against the Jacksonville Jaguars December 1st with 4:20 remaining in the second quarter, you were involved in a play that the league considers unacceptable and a serious violation of the playing rules. Video shows you striking the head neck area of Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence after he clearly goes down in a feet-first slide. You led with your forearm and helmet and delivered a forceful blow to the neck head area of your opponent when you had time and space to avoid such contact. After the illegal hit, this is the important part, after the illegal hit, you proceeded to engage in a brawl, which you escalated when you pulled an opponent down to the ground by his face mask. After the referee announced that you were disqualified for the hit and your unsportsmanlike act, you removed your helmet and re-engaged with your opponent while walking down and across the field, which started another physical confrontation near the end zone. Your lack of sportsmanship and respect for the game of football and all those who play, coach, and enjoy watching it is troubling and does not reflect the core values of the NFL. Your continued disregard for NFL playing rules puts the health and safety of both you and your opponents in jeopardy and will not be tolerated. Cecil, your thoughts on the statement from Jon Runyan on Azeez Al-Shaair?
The statement... The statement is interesting. The hit is what the hit was. I'm not disagreeing with what the call was on the field. The hit is what the hit was. We can go into the weeds about quarterbacks and sliding and not sliding and how it should look and whatever the case may be, right? But the statement, to me, what stood out was the fact that he said, you started the brawl. He started the brawl with the hit. This is just my unpopular opinion. After that, he had to defend himself because Evan Ingram, and rightfully so, was on their sideline. Evan Ingram, who's on the field in the play, came in and hit him from the back, right? Defending his quarterback. And then after that, the guys on the sideline came and all these emotions start going. If we know anything about Azeez, when he gets surrounded, he's going to stand up for himself. So he didn't start the brawl. The guys came at him after he made the hit, and then there was a fight on both ends. So I don't think he started the brawl when it means he's out there just started throwing haymakers and punches. He was defending himself after the hit. So that's where I get a little confused. I'm like, wait a second. Yes, he made the hit. The hit should have been a penalty. But after that, Evan Ingram came and hit him. The offensive lineman came. Guys came off the bench, start getting on him. And then once a guy like him gets in that mode, I got to defend myself, it's hard to calm a guy like that down. So I also think the penalty, honestly, is too harsh as far as 3 games. But there should be other people getting penalized or fined or something from the Jaguars as well. Because he wasn't by himself. He wasn't by himself, Pat. He was being antagonized as he was out of control. He was out of control, but he was also being antagonized from guys trying to defend their quarterback, right? And I understand that from a standpoint, I'm going to defend my teammate, but it doesn't mean it's right. There's no fights allowed on the field. That's just what it is. So the statement is very interesting to me in that part. Like, it's not, they making it seem like it's just about him. The hit was him. And I don't necessarily think the hit was not needed. It was a bad decision by him. And that's how he plays, right? He always is borderline going to that extent, right? Whether it's a guy on the sideline or whatever the case may be, he is that guy. He's going to play through the whistle. I coached middle school, I coached high school ball, I played since I was 7 years old. You want guys that play through the whistle, but at the same time, you got to have a little bit of self-control. That's what I think he kind of struggles with a little bit. Once he gets going, he's just all forward, right? But the statement is making it seem like it was all him after the hit. After the hit, it was him and then everybody else in that Jacksonville sideline that was a part of it. If I'm not mistaken, he was up under getting punched on by 70-something and 17 and other people there. It wasn't just him. So that statement to me is very interesting.
No, and look, I get the part about you talking about how, look, in the immediate aftermath of the hit, Jaguars players are all going to, try to dogpile on them. They're protecting their quarterback who's got a history of concussion issues, who was just coming back from an injury. To me, the bigger issue with Azeez was after he's thrown out of the game, he doesn't leave the field. He takes his helmet off. He's going after Brandon Scherf. He's trying to start more stuff in the end zone. Henry To'oTo'o's basically got him in a waist lock, trying to stop him from going after guys because he's losing his mind. And that second altercation that led to another Donnybrook in the end zone after the penalties had been announced, I thought that was the more egregious of the two fights per se. The fight right after the hit, okay, that's going to happen. And I think officials understand that's going to happen because, like you said, guys are going to protect their quarterback. And then when you've got 10 guys coming at you, you are in survival mode. But it was 5 minutes later, after they settled everybody down and they announced the penalties, that he then lost his mind again and started another brawl. I think that was the bigger issue, and I think that's why Azeez was hit with 3 games, despite being a guy who's never been suspended before. The NFL's history is not that, hey, you get multiple games your first time. Usually, there's a fine, then there's a game, then there's multiple games. He's never been suspended before for something like this. This is almost like they're trying to make an example out of Azeez, partly for the hit and partly for the shenanigans that went on afterwards. Nick Caserio was on with the media at NRG Stadium earlier today. And here was his statement when he was asked about the 3-game suspension for Azeez Al-Shaair. He said, the most important thing is the health and well-being of Trevor. I think one of the biggest issues that we sort of take umbrage with as a team and organizationally is the picture that's being painted of Azeez. Quite frankly, it's unfair. I think all teams ask for is consistency from the league. And I'd say in this situation, quite frankly, there's no consistency at all relative to the level of discipline that's been handed down to Azeez Al-Shaair.
Agreed.
He's not wrong about that.
No. Mm-mm.
He's not wrong about that. Like, Azeez is definitely being painted out as like Vontaze Burfict 2.0.
Yes, I've seen people say that. That's crazy.
that is crazy. I mean, it's we've seen worse hits than that just this year.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the hit, because it's a quarterback, because it's a quarterback that's got a recent history of injuries, and then I think the two brawls that followed. I don't think it's lost on the NFL, the brawls that happened in very high-profile college football games this week.
Mm-hmm.
And that then they had a game the very next day with two brawls essentially on the same play, that the NFL is trying to send a stern message of we're cutting this out right now. We are not going to have fights across the field. We are not doing this. So the penalty, I think, is based on NFL precedent, overly punitive for what this type of hit, just a hit, what this type of hit would normally get a player who has never been suspended before for a hit.
I totally agree. And we talked about it a little bit before the show. He's being made an example. And if you look at the huge picture, maybe we're in the weeds, I don't know. But what happened on rivalry weekend with all the high-profile college football games and the brawls you've seen on TV, right? This wasn't a good look for college football, period. Then you see a brawl on Sunday after the hit, right? That's just not a good look for business, for the NFL, which is a business. In their mind, in my opinion, they're like, we got to make this a hard, stern, we are not accepting this at all. Right? They want to be separate from college football as far as how they want to handle it. They want to make, hey, we are the standard. This is the expectation. Boom, boom, boom. The hit alone, in my opinion, especially without being ever suspended before, is not a suspendable thing. Like, to me, that's just not. A fine, of course. Maybe even a one game if you do it at most, right? But what Caserio is saying, just some consistency. We've seen dirty plays, quote unquote, all year long and not been talked about, have not been replayed over and over again, have not been fined, have not been even mentioned. But this type of play happened all the time. Maybe it's a dirty play where somebody's twisting a quarterback's ankle, right? Maybe it's a dirty play where it's a late hit on the sideline or whatever the case may be.
Seen that too.
Yes, we have. From high profile names. So it's just frustrating because I feel like a lot of the media, a lot of fans, I wouldn't say they're overreacting, but they're painting this picture of Azeez that's not fair. He is not a dirty player. He is a guy that plays to the whistle. He's a guy that you want on your football team. And it's the reason why D'Amico stood up for him. Because when D'Amico speaks, I listen, right? D'Amico played that position before. He understands that the split second, you have to make a decision. When a 6'6", 220-pound quarterback is coming at you and has not slid yet within a certain amount of yards, you got to make a decision. Am I going to hit him or not? And Azeez made the decision, right? Boom. It ended in a bad thing for Trevor Lawrence. Never want him to get hurt. Nobody get hurt. But to make him out as a bad person, as a bad, dirty player, he's not a suit type player. He's not going out there every week stomping on people and doing things dirty. He's not. So stop this narrative that he's a terrible dude. And they start going to his religion and all this other stuff. Like that's ridiculous to me. Flat out ridiculous. Keep it on the field. Was the play unnecessary? Possibly. I can give you that. You can talk about the play all you want. But him as a person, he's not a dirty person. He's not at all. And if you understood his background and where he came from, maybe you'll understand why he plays the way he plays. Why he plays so hard with so much passion through the whistle like he's being taught. So that's the frustrating part about this. Azeez is not a bad dude at all. He's a great person. But the fact that they are trying to make an example out of him is what's frustrating for me.
Now, look, Azeez did not go into this game thinking, how can I lay a dirty hit on somebody and knock him out of the game? He didn't. That was never happening. In fact, before the game, Azeez Al-Shaair and Trevor Lawrence were talking. Azeez was like, hey, man, it's great to see you back on the field, hoping for him to be healthy. Azeez doesn't have ill intentions or ill wishes towards Trevor Lawrence. It's an unfortunate play that happened in the course of a game. Now, would things have been different if, in the course of Azeez going to make this hit and seeing that Trevor is sliding, if he had just moved his forearms, just open them out and not deliver the forearm straight to the face, if he'd have just opened out. Now, I don't know how much time there is to actually make that decision, because we are really talking about fractions of the second.
Yes.
We're talking about large, very strong people moving at full speed, making split-second decisions. I don't know that most people can even open their arms as fast as he would need to make that decision and then execute it. But I do feel like if there wasn't a forearm straight to the head, the conversation is probably a lot different, right? I mean, if he hits him and he hits him as he's sliding, but he doesn't hit him directly in the head, it's 15-yard penalty. There's a little bit of dust up. I don't think that we're talking about suspensions. I don't think we're talking about brawls. I don't think we're talking about any of those things. So no, I don't believe that Azeez is a guy with malintention, a guy who is trying to play the game with hate in his heart to deliberately injure people. I don't believe any of that for a second. I did take a little issue with his apology yesterday, though.
Oh, really? Okay.
I feel it to me, if you're going to apologize, you apologize and you move on. Azeez made an apology, and then at the end of his apology, kind of turned himself into a victim. And that is apology no 101. Here is Azeez's apology publicly posted yesterday. I've always played the game as hard as I could, never with the intent to harm anyone or anybody that knows me that. My goal is to hit you as hard as I can, and I pray you're able to still get up and play the next play. When the game is over, go home to your family unharmed, because it's not personal, it's just competition. We both are trying to do the same thing, which is provide for our families. I genuinely didn't see him sliding until it was too late. It all happens in the blink of an eye. To Trevor, I genuinely apologize to you for what ended up happening. Before the game, we spoke, and I told you how great it was to see you back out on the field and wished you well. I would never want to see any player hurt because of a hit I put on them, especially one that's deemed late or unnecessary. To the rest of his teammates, I can definitely understand you having his back and defending him in a situation like that. To the rest of the people who I've been called every single name in the book, from reporters with their hands ready for a story, to find their villain, to racist and Islamophobic fans and people, you don't know my heart nor my character, which I don't need to prove to any of you. God knows my intentions, and anyone who has ever been a teammate or friend of mine knows my heart. That part of the end, he could have left that out.
Why you
could have left that out.
Say that? I disagree.
When you're going with the media wants to make me a villain with racist and Islamophobic undertones, now you're making yourself a victim. All right, this isn't
the truth.
Is it? Because to me, the truth is you laid a dirty hit, and now you're going to face the fire for that. That to me, and look, my opinion is clearly different because I am an outsider looking in. You're a former player. But for me, as media, as a fan, this isn't about white, black, red, yellow, green, purple, polka dot. This isn't about Christian, Catholic, Muslim, Hindu, agnostic, Satanist. This is, you delivered a dirty hit with your forearm to the guy's head. You drove his head into the ground, and then you started not one, but two brawls. I don't think it matters what God you worship. That's what you did. I don't think it matters about any of that other stuff. This is just about what you did in that moment. And I don't feel like if any other player in the league, regardless of their background, regardless of their religion, if any other player in the league delivered a forearm shot to a guy's head when he was sliding, knocked him out of the game, then started a brawl, then started a second brawl, you got to face the fire for that. You don't have to be made a villain. You did that on your own because you did something you shouldn't have done, and then you compounded it by not understanding the moment, not getting the hell off the field, not de-escalating the situation, but re-escalating the situation, not once but twice. And it's the second one to me that's the most egregious. Because at that point, you're ejected. You've been announced as ejected. Get the hell off the field. And you didn't. So to me, this isn't about all that other stuff.
I don't disagree with anything.
But I do want, again, you played. So as a player, is it a different point of view than someone who covers the team?
Yes, because everything he's talking about, he's going through. So everything you mentioned is true. Like everything you just mentioned about on the field, what happened and why he was in that situation is true. But the last part of his apology is also true to him because people are coming at him about those things. He didn't bring that up. He never brought anything of that up, anything about his religion or anything of that. People brought that to him. So when you bring that to him and you're the person getting it, it's like, yo, I got to address that as well because they're coming at me and I didn't even say anything about my religion or my race or he didn't say anything about that. On the field, he's never had on the field. Never in his platform, he's never mentioned that. But when media and fans go out their way to talk about what cleats he's wearing, and that happens to be, that's politics, all that type of stuff, I think it was like free Palestine or something like that. When they go out their way to talk about him in that way, then he has the right to bring it back up. That's just my humble opinion. Everything you mentioned on the field, I can't argue with that. That's absolutely correct. But when you come at a player, when he doesn't bring it up himself, when you come at a player and you talk about that type of stuff, he has the right to bring it back up, in my humble opinion.
And I think that's a fair statement. And that's really why I wanted your opinion on that, because I felt like it was going to be different. And it's valid. I will say I did not see media pushing that narrative. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just means I didn't personally see it. Did you happen to see any of that? And again, I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying I didn't see it. Because
yes,
look, I can't see every single thing that everybody in the media does. Nobody can. So again, I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying it personally didn't come across my timeline, but that's just people that I follow. That's not everyone.
So you got to think of it this way, right? It may not even be mainstream media.
Okay, that's fair enough.
It's probably not. It's not going to be mainstream media, right? But it could be a random fan that just doesn't like the shoes he's wearing. It can be a random fan that's different political views than he has. It could be a random person, but it's consistently random people in talking to him and coming at him. That's why he feels the way he feels that he had to speak up. Does that make sense? Because it wasn't mainstream. It's not going to be the Jacksonville radio or the Jacksonville media. It's not going to be the Houston media. It's going to be the fans that are picking and want to get at him and try to get a response from him and going to pick. And there's some of those people that have big accounts, but not necessarily are a part of a big, you know what I'm saying, like a big.
They're not part of a big media outfit, but they have big social media followings. Okay,
but he's still getting that. Does that make sense?
I do. I understand what you're saying, and like for me, and again, I'm not a player, but for me, if we're talking about fans, these are some of the same knuckleheads. And not obviously, I'm not saying all fans are knuckleheads, but what I'm saying is there are fans who are knuckleheads who are going to send you the most vile stuff because I needed you to get 5 fantasy points for me, and you only got 4.
You're absolutely right.
Okay? Fans are unpredictable. Fans are uncontrollable. Engaging in the nonsense with fans is silliness. You can't win that battle. And you should never even address it. Now, if
That's
media
hard, though,
is
Pat.
saying dumbass
That's
stuff,
hard, Pat.
like I have no problem with you coming off the top rope with the Randy Savage double axe handle on anybody in the media who's talking out both sides of their mouth saying wild, wacky nonsense.
Yeah.
It's one thing to have an opinion. It's another to attack a guy personally.
Correct.
Right? If you're media, and I don't care if you're media because you're a blogger, okay? If you are any kind of media where you have a credential, and look, bloggers get credential. There's a lot of blogs out there that get a lot of traffic. They do a great job. But every now and then there's somebody out there who's, looking for the heat. They're going to come find some. If there's somebody who is part of the media, whether it's traditional media or digital media, and they're going after him about his race, about his religion, about whatever, yeah, you can choke slam that dude through a table. They earned it because they know better. Well, they should know better. But fans, crazy drunk fans, they're the worst fans because they say insanity. And social media is basically the birthplace of insanity. I mean, not really, but boy, does it sort of seem like the birthplace of insanity. Because if you want crazy nonsense to entertain you for hours on end for free, let me introduce this thing called the inter and the webs. But I had not seen any media go after him like that. I certainly saw plenty of media villainize him. But that villainy seemed to be more about the hit, the fight, the fact that he, punched Roschon Johnson in the face week 2 on the sideline, plays in the past when he was at San Francisco where, let's say, he took liberties with other players' throats maybe, but none of these things garnered him a suspension previously. So the league never considered them to be so egregious that they had to suspend him. Is that the league's fault? Maybe it is. Maybe he should have paid a bigger price for grabbing a guy by the throat or punching a random Bears player in the face, right? Maybe there should have been a bigger penalty for that, but there wasn't. And precedence matters. So they are potentially looking at not having Azeez Al-Shaair for the next 3 games. And that's the 3 games, 11-day gauntlet of the Miami Dolphins, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Baltimore Ravens. It is the most important 3-game stretch of the season. From before the season started, we all circled this 3 games in 11 days and said, this is where the Texans season will make or break. And they are now down their number 1 linebacker for those 3 games, pending Azeez's appeal, which he has announced he will appeal. Do you expect he will get anything less than 2 games on an appeal?
So when it comes to the possibility of the suspension getting lessened, I think there's a possibility. I think they'll maybe do 1 game. I think he'll serve a solid 2. I think they're going to stand firm on the statement to me from Reigns said it all. They feel like, in my opinion, and I think we agree on this part, where the melee after the fact was just too much. It was just too much. So I think they're going to stand firm on that. And I think he'll serve at least 2 games. Maybe they take 1 game off, but I think he'll serve at least 2 games. Whether I agree with that or not doesn't mean anything, right? I think they're going to stand firm on it. I think Goodell wants to make a point. I think, like we talked about, what happened on Saturday with all that stuff going on, they want to really set themselves apart and make sure that football stays clean. It stays looking a certain way, which is a good product for the NFL and their business. So maybe 1 game, but I just don't see too much happening after this.
I mean, essentially, you're going to look at Miami and Kansas City at a minimum without Azeez.
Oh, man.
Neville Hewitt's going to have to step up for for 2 games in a very short time period. These 3 games, this is an 8-5 football team. These 3 games, extremely important. This is the toughest stretch of the season. If the Texans, in your opinion, do not win the Miami game, are they 0 for 3 in that stretch?
Nah, I look at the Ravens as being beatable. I look at the Kansas City Chiefs as being beatable. I do. Now they have to bring their A game. Now, if they don't bring their A game, if they don't over the bye week improve and say, hey, we're going to do A, B, and C on offense, A, B, C on defense, special teams, we're going to, do this better, do that better. If they don't come back and play their A game, then they could go 1-3. But I think if they play their best, they win a game or two. I truly do. I truly do. It'll be tough for me to say they win both at Kansas City and Baltimore at home, especially being a short week. But I do think they split one of those and they beat Miami, right? So I'm on a. Again, I'm always optimistic, but I do think they don't go 0-3. They do split Baltimore, Kansas City. Not having Azeez will hurt big time, but hopefully everybody else can kind of heal up and be ready to go for this December gauntlet over the bye week.
The bye week coming very late for the Texans, week 14 this year, and certainly this is a team that has been beat up, that has struggled. We've seen extreme deterioration of the offensive line play as the season went on. Did have a better game against Jacksonville, but Jacksonville is one of the worst defenses in the league. They're a team that doesn't do any kind of real stunting or anything. They really rely on Josh Hines-Allen to deliver, Trayvon Walker to deliver a lot of things on their own. And this is not a big-time defensive front. It's not a big-time defense. They're going to face some big-time defenses coming up. They're going to face some playoff teams that are coming up the next 3 weeks, and they got roughly 2 weeks here to get things straightened out, to figure out all their blocking schemes, to figure out all their offensive issues. Cecil, right now, your percentage of confidence, we'll break it down, 90%, 75%, 50%, 25%, 10%. We'll give you those are the 5 layers. What is your confidence percentage the Texans can get the offense right over the bye week going into Miami's game?
Honestly, it's probably 50%. It's probably at 50. I just don't know. From what we've seen in the first 13, 14 weeks, why would that give me confidence to say, yes, they can improve and change and make some things happen? I just don't know. With having a bye week late in the season, it's tough to have like that mid-year review for the coaches, for the players. Like, okay, this is what we need to work on. We need to improve on, boom, 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 because you don't have that like kind of. But then you had a Thursday night game in there. You had the Monday. Like it's ways to get around it. And you don't do good with adjustments, in my opinion. This was the first game, I think, the second half, you decided to run the football more, and that was a good adjustment. Like, all right, cool, they don't defend the run well, give Joe Mixon the ball, right? So I'm 50-50. I'm hopeful. I think they were intentional against Jacksonville to try to get CJ going. Like, I think that was very intentional. I think there was a lot of passing going on because they knew a bye week was coming. They knew they should win this game, and they know, listen, hey, CJ, we got to get him confident and get him rolling. Can we get him back in his accurate way? Can we get back in his groove? And I think that helped a little bit. But do I feel confident they will make the correct adjustments, decisions, game plan adjustments, in-game adjustments is the biggest thing for me. I'm 50-50 on if that will happen. What about you, Pat?
I don't have a whole lot of confidence in Bobby Slowick right now. I don't. And I don't think he's given me any reason to have confidence in him. I don't trust that this team is going to make any kind of changes to its blocking scheme. I don't trust they're going to change the personnel on the offensive line if they continue to have issues with guys who are struggling at their positions or whatnot. I don't trust that they're going to realize, hey, maybe we shouldn't ask 340-pound Shaq Mason to pull all the way across the line and try to block an unblocked defensive end, as if That's there are laws for this thing called physics, and what you're asking Shaq to do violates all of them. So, my confidence is low. We're going to say it's 25%. My confidence is low. I also feel that if they don't get it worked out over the bye week, this is a one and done football team in the postseason. And there was, after everything they did in the offseason, this is a team that was supposed to be a lot better than the team last year. I got to tell you, Cecil, I don't see that. They don't look better to me. They look worse. Do you think the Texans are better or worse than they were a year ago?
I think they're about the same. And to me, with all the expectations that came with this year, all the additions you came this year, I have to go with worse. Does that make sense? Because when you add those pieces, and you expect for those pieces to take you over the top and you have the same record, you didn't get that much better in that time frame. So for me, I would say they got a little bit worse, not egregiously. But the struggles you see on the offensive line, that wasn't there last year. You protected Stroud last year. Stroud was amazing last year. He's struggling with a sophomore slump this year. You are able to run the football, right? But it's still just not the same from what you expect in the beginning of the year. Defensively, I think there's some areas of improvement. You don't got Azeez for the next 3 weeks. Is Hewitt that much of a difference maker in that time frame against those three top tier offenses coming back? I'm gonna say no. I mean, you can say what you want about Mike McDaniels. He can call some dang on offensive plays indoors. The temperature's warm. They're going to compete at a high level. Like, you feel me? Then you got Mahomes and Lamar. So for me, I think last year, no one expected you to do anything. So you kind of surprised people. This year, when the expectation was there, you did not live up to the expectations thus far. And if you look at between this year and last year around the same record, I would say you're a little bit worse than what you were last year. Because now people are still coming. This gauntlet of the schedule, I keep talking about it, but it's a real thing. And good teams across the league, good teams find ways to win in December. That's just what it is. So these next 3 weeks will tell a lot about you when it comes to this playoff run. Plus, right now, the playoffs were today, you're going to see a hot, I'm about to say San Diego, but a hot LA Chargers team. I don't know if I want to see them first round. Just being completely honest. Like, they are a team that's physical. They're going to run the football. They get turnovers. They do a hell of a job on defense. And for them to come to Houston, that's going to be a tough matchup. So you have to figure this out and be really good to try to elevate your spot to play a different team for a better matchup. But I think the Chargers are a tough matchup right now for the Texans. So I would say a little bit worse.
All right, Cecil, last one for you for today. I didn't go over this one. This one's new. This one's coming at you out of left field.
Here we go.
It's a whole hypothetical situation, but it's always been a hypothetical situation.
Okay.
Before the season started, there was talk about, could JJ Watt rejoin the Texans late in the season for a potential playoff / Super Bowl push? We are right about the point in the season where we talked about if JJ was going to come back, it was probably going to be, after the bye week. Well, we're hitting the bye week. This team is 8-5. If you are JJ Watt, is this team good enough for you to consider putting the pads on one more time? Or are they not good? Or do you not feel like there is a realistic Super Bowl opportunity here and you stay retired?
They're good enough for sure. It's about, we talked about making the adjustments. Are we confident they're going to make the adjustments, right? But my thing with JJ is you don't need JJ. Like, you don't need an older JJ. Your pass rush is amazing. Like, you can't ask for much more from your pass. Will he help? Oh, now let me correct myself before all the fans jump on me. He would help for sure. He would help for sure, but it's not like a big need, in my opinion. Could he be a D tackle or somebody that can be a? He could help, but if I'm JJ, this hypothetical. To answer your question, Pat, that you threw at me from out of left field. Yes, they are good enough for a Super Bowl run, so I would consider trying to come back and be a part of the team for sure. The talent-wise, they are good enough.
Does a player like JJ Watt entering the locker room create an emotional lift for the other players and get more out of them? Go back to the Broncos' last Super Bowl. Peyton Manning is injured. Peyton Manning's not playing well. He's struggling to throw the football. Brock Osweiler takes over. The team seems to flounder under Brock Osweiler, who, I mean, to be fair to Brock didn't play poorly for the Broncos. He made some bad throws every now and then, but he didn't necessarily play poorly. But the last week of the season, he struggles, and he throws 2 bad picks. They put Peyton Manning in the game, and it's like every single player of the Broncos hulked up. And this went all through the playoffs. This offensive line for the Broncos, you could see them raise their level of play. The running backs raise their level of play. The defense raise its level of play. Peyton could barely throw the ball 15 yards. And that team won a Super Bowl with a great defense and a run game and throwing some short passes because they all believed in Peyton Manning, you know, the legend of Peyton Manning. We're going to win for this guy. He's our guy. Could JJ Watt have the same effect on the Texans? JJ walks into the locker room and there's a ripple effect where everybody now hulks up because we're going to go out there. We're going to win because we got JJ Watt.
No, I don't think so. I think the scenario you gave, Peyton was already in the locker room. Peyton was already there. They know what the expectation was. They knew what type of guy he was, what he brought to the locker room. They didn't have to get to know him. These players in the locker room will have to get to know JJ. They never played with JJ, most of them, right? They know of him, obviously, one of the best to ever do it. And then you got to look at it too. You got Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. and Nico Autry. Could JJ come in and help? Yeah, but he had to find a rhythm, like find his place, right? And if I'm Danico, or if I'm Tim Settle, or if I'm the Anderson or Danico, it's like, yo, I'm sorry, not Daniil. I'm like, yo, I love you, JJ. You're awesome, but we don't need you to win. You could help, but we don't need you to win. We're doing just fine coming off the rush, doing our job as D tackles, defensive ends. So I think there might be a dynamic where you might hurt some feelings, and that could hurt your culture, right? Because it goes off of bringing somebody brand new in. It goes off of the team to JJ Watt. It goes off to Houston Texans to JJ Watt. So that's where I think the disconnect would come from. Would he help a team? Absolutely. He'll help the Texans for sure. Especially at his age now, he can still help. He's just a dynamic player. But would it be the best thing for the Texans? I just wouldn't say so.
He is former Houston Texans wide receiver, 6-year NFL veteran, Cecil Shorts III. I'm Patrick Creighton, host of Area 45 on Sports Radio 610, your home for the Houston Texans. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Believe in Texans podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And there's gonna be a lot of interesting things going for the Houston Texans over the next week and a half as they go through the bye week. Get ready for the 3-game gauntlet of Miami, Kansas City, and Baltimore. We'll have all that coverage for you right here on the Believe in Texans podcast. So until next time, go Texans.